We're now going to look at adding and subtracting fractions which will lead to a mixed fraction answer. So if we take a look at part A, we want to add the following two fractions. You can't add fractions or subtract fractions until you make their denominators the same. So like we've done already, we get the LCM of both denominators. So the smallest number that both denominators go into here is going to be 20. So we're going to make both denominators 20. So let's start with 7 over 10. We want to make its denominator 20. So to do that, we'll have to multiply 10 by 2. And then we'll have to do exactly the same thing to the numerator. That's going to give us 14 over 20. Now you take 3/4. We want to make its denominator 20. So we've got to therefore multiply 4 by 5. And then we must do exactly the same thing to the numerator. And that's going to give us 15. So we're now going to add the two equivalent fractions together. So we now have 14 over 20 plus 15 over 20. Now that both denominators are the same, we can write it as a single fraction with a denominator of 20. And that then allows us just to add the two numerators. So we add the two numerators, we're going to get 29. And we put that over 20. Now, once we have our single fraction, you must check first of all that it's fully cancelled, and it is, because the largest number that goes into 29 and 20 is just 1. So we've checked that it's fully cancelled. If it wasn't fully cancelled, then you would need to cancel it. Once you've done your check and it's fully cancelled, the next thing you should recognise is we've got an improper fraction. Remember, the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So if it's improper, we must turn it into a mixed fraction or a mixed number. And to do that, you start with the denominator and you ask yourself, how many times does 20 fit into 29? How many times does the denominator fit into the numerator? 20 fits into 29 once. We're going to have a remainder of 9. And we put that remainder that we have over the original denominator here that was 20. The denominator that we had. Then do a final check that the fraction part of your answer is fully cancelled, and it is. Largest number that goes into 9 and 20 is just 1. So that's our final answer for part A. Part B, we have 4/9 and we want to add 5/6. So again, in order to add or subtract fractions, we must make the denominators the same. So we're going to get the LCM of both denominators. So the smallest number that 9 and 6 both go into is going to be 18. So let's make both denominators 18. So we'll start with 4/9. So we want to make its denominator into 18. In order to do that, we'll have to multiply 9 by 2. And we must do exactly the same thing to the numerator, multiply by 2. That's now going to give us 8 over 18. We're going to take 5/6 and we're going to make its denominator 18 as well. So in order to do that, we have to multiply 6 by 3. And then we must do the same to the numerator. So we're going to have to multiply 5 by 3. And that's going to give us 15 over 18. So again, we're now going to add the two equivalent fractions here, which have the same denominator. So we have 8 over 18. And we're adding 15 over 18. Now that both fractions have the same denominator, we can write our answer down as a single fraction with that denominator of 18. That then allows us to add the two numerators. So we're going to have 15 plus 8 is going to give us 23. The next thing you must do is check that the fraction you have at this stage is fully cancelled. So in other words, is the largest number that goes into 23 and 18 just 1? And the answer is yes. There's no bigger number than 1 that goes into both of these numbers. Okay, so final thing is we must realize we have an improper fraction, numerator bigger than denominator. So when that's the case, you must turn it into a mixed fraction. To do that, you start with the denominator 18 and you ask yourself, how many times does the denominator fit into the numerator 23? Well, 18 only fits into 23 once, and we're going to have a remainder of 5, and we're going to put the remainder of 5 over the original denominator that we're left with here, 18. And again, do a final check. Is the fraction part of your answer fully cancelled? And it is. Largest number to go into 5 and 18 is just 1. Okay, part C. Okay, part C, we're adding 4/5 and 7/10. Again, cannot add or subtract until denominators are the same. So we're going to get the LCM of 5 and 10. And the smallest number that they both go into is just 10. So we're going to make both denominators 10. Well, let's start with 4/5. To make its denominator 10, that means we have to multiply 5 by 2. And we must do exactly the same thing to the numerator. Multiply it by the same number, 2. 4 2's will give us 8. So we found a fraction that's equivalent to 4/5. In other words, it has the same value. So 4/5 has become 8/10. The good news is the second fraction already has a denominator of 10, so we don't need to do anything to it. So we're now ready to add the two fractions that have a denominator of 10. So we now have we now have 8/10, and we're adding on 7/10. So again, both denominators are exactly the same, so that allows us to write down our answer as a single fraction with that denominator, and then we can just simply add the two numerators. So 8 plus 7 is going to give us 15. Again, once we appear to have our final answer, check first of all that it's fully cancelled, and it isn't this time because the largest number that goes into 15 and 10 is not 1, it's actually 5. So we're going to have to cancel, so divide both top and bottom by 5, and that's going to give us 3, and bottom line is going to give us 2. So we're left with 3 over 2. Now again, is it fully cancelled? Yes, because the largest number that goes into 3 and 2 is just 1. So we're left with 3 over 2. But, like before, it's improper. So that means we must change it into a mixed fraction. So again, you start with the denominator and ask yourself, how many times does the denominator 2 fit into the numerator of 3? Well, 2 only fits into 3 once. We're going to have a remainder of 1. And we're going to put that remainder over the original denominator here, the denominator that we're left with, which is just 2. And again, final check the fraction bit of your answer is fully cancelled, and it is. Largest number to go into 1 and 2 is just 1. And that's it.